Yo, Marcus, welcome back to Low Budget Wisdom. At some point, we will have to learn how to sit with ourselves and our thoughts and our emotions and the whole package of it alone. At some point in life, whether we like it or not, it will be forced upon us at some point. We cannot escape this. Uh, Everybody will have to go through that. And in fact, the time when you know go to bed and when you're trying to fall asleep, you're just laying there by yourself. You are yourself. You are your most authentic self, without filters, without masks, without any of that need for acting a certain way, or to there's no expectations. Essentially, there's no expectations to be anyone other than being your most vulnerable, pure self. And then thoughts throughout, thoughts that happen, or thoughts about what happened throughout that day, or anticipation towards the future, or reminiscing about what happened in the past. Those things would come back up for you to process and review, and you know sensations of the body, chronic pain. These things come up, right? You start to be so vulnerable to the point where things that are stored or hidden starts to surface. At some point we will have to face this, either daily life, when you start to lose friends and colleagues and family members, because you start doing the work of consciously trying to be aware of where you stand in this journey of life. And then maybe life forces you, due to certain circumstances, if life forces you to be in solitude most of the time throughout the day. We will have to go through that, because modern society has really forced us. I wouldn't use the word forced, but it has pushed us to the point where we will have to act and put on a certain persona no matter where we are. As long as we are a part of society, to a certain extent, we will have to have a created personality, a persona. Right? Being in at work, you have to put on the professional persona. You have to speak proper. You have to act proper. There are certain standard procedures that you will have to do. Right? It's a form of a mask. Uh, Spending time with certain friend groups, you have to put on certain personas as well. Friend group A, you might use a slightly different persona or personality to interact with them, as opposed to being with friend group B, and also as compared to being one on one with another person. Depending on who the person is, then we will have to put on certain personas to fit that role and fit that interaction between you and the other person or another group of people. So there isn't really, just to add to that really quick, being a father, being a mother, that is a role to play as well, right? You don't treat your kids the same way you treat your friends, or the same way you treat your parents, the same way you treat your colleagues, or in a professional setting. You don't we don't There are roles, no matter at which stage you are, right? Basically, you get the point, right? Where was I? So yeah, right. So the only time where we can be fully vulnerable with ourselves without all these kind of pretense is when we are in solitude. As hard as that may sound to some people, but we will have to learn to be with ourselves no matter how far or how fast or how hard we run away from that. We will have to eventually face ourselves. And some people, you know, some people may realize this a little bit too late when they are about to leave their bodies, right, on their deathbed or whatever. Some people realize too late, but that's okay. That's totally fine because it happens. And we are not meant to be perfect human beings. Uh, uh, you know, we are not meant to figure out life completely, perfectly on our first try. That's why there's things such as reincarnation. After you leave this physical body, you think that's the end of our lives. Yeah, it's at the end of this life, but there are infinite lifetimes left for you to, experiment, trial and error, to learn certain karmic lessons, to form certain karmic relationships so that you can progress at a higher level, not in this low human 3D form. When I mention low 3D level form, I'm not trying to say that being human is not respectable. That's not what I mean by low level. What I mean is, at this level, the frequency and vibration is so low to the point where we can feel physical. We can feel the physical aspect of being human. And manifestations take a long time to appear. It's not so much. It basically is slow and dense. That describes the whole aspect of the environment of the 3D reality, the 3D body. It's slow, it's dense, you feel pain, everything comes at once, emotions feel like they're trapped and takes some time, takes a while to pass through your body, you know. Things take time to come into to reality, what your thoughts and ideas are. It takes time to train them. It takes time to build muscle. It takes time to digest. Everything takes time, essentially. Time moves slow as compared to, relatively speaking, as compared to a higher realm. Right? We're getting a bit spiritual here. So essentially, the only time that we can fully be present with ourselves is when we are in solitude, when we are alone. And so learn to be alone. Learn to enjoy being in solitude. It may be tough at the start if you're not used to that, if you're used to having all kinds of distractions from left, right, center. There's so many different types, there's so many options to choose from to distract ourselves from being alone. Scrolling your phone, scrolling every single time when you're alone or when you have some free time to do some introspection, right? I do that, but be aware of how much you're scrolling up to a point. Oh, wait a second. Catch yourself. Be consciously aware enough. Learn to be consciously aware enough to catch yourself. To catch yourself when you're doing these kind of distractive actions, distractive thoughts and fantasies. It's not wrong. It's normal to have those things as a human being, but being aware helps you to calibrate it better. learning to be aware, conscious of what you're doing. Watch yourself do those things, whether it be any form of addictions, doom doom scrolling, or distracting yourself with substances, distracting with yourself with being around friends all the time, you know, partying, working. You can distract yourself from knowing yourself, from self introspection, by overworking as well, right? Some people work to their death, essentially. There's so many different distractions. Food, exercise, you know, exercising so much to the point where you break down your body and you feel that pain, because that pain sometimes, the physical pain sometimes feels much better than the emotional and mental pain that we're feeling. So I understand. I get that. I've been there. I've done that. I understand. Human life, being human is not easy at all. In fact, being human is one of the hardest. This is a human school. This is Earth school. Being in this 3D form, this being in this physical body is pain. That's why babies cry the first thing when they come out from their mother's womb. They cry because, man, who put me here? Right? I'm enjoying as a spirit, as a form, as a bundle of energy and consciousness, so free spirited, and then now I'm stuck in this physical body for the next, 70 years or whatever the average lifespan is in your country. Right? That's why babies cry. The first thing that that's the first thing that they do, because it's painful to be existing in a body and moving around this 3D reality, this 3D earth, and going through the curriculum of life, right? It's painful. So I understand why people get into addictions. I did. Why people get into addictions, and why they want to sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the carpet. These kind of things that help us, realize ourselves more. They sweep self introspection under the rug and push it away. I'll do it later, right? I understand, because it's painful. It's painful to face our fears. It's painful to be in solitude, because it brings out all the trash and the rubbish hidden beneath this facade. I don't know how to pronounce that word. It it would sometimes be. It feels like it's much better to go through another form of pain, for example, physical pain, as compared to mental and emotional pain. So we distract ourselves with all these numbing addictions, drinking, social addictions. We need friends, to validate us so that we feel better of ourselves, because we don't have that self-confidence. We are not able to be a strong pillar of strength for ourselves yet. Yeah, it's a learning journey. It takes time, right? But essentially, learn to be alone. Learn to be alone. Learn to go out and do the things that you would like to do alone. You want to visit that cafe? Yeah, go alone. Try to go alone. You want to watch that movie? Try and do it alone. It may be scary, because being alone feels so vulnerable. As you're walking there alone, as you're walking around alone, as you're driving alone, people see you. You're in the presence of other people. And then your mind starts to come up with all these excuses and negative thoughts, and whatnot, and you feel like everybody can see you being alone with all your vulnerabilities coming out in your head, it feels life threatening. But until and unless we learn how to be alone and feel comfortable in our own skin, and being in solitude, going to cafes and movies and restaurants and shopping malls and gardens and parks alone is a good way to cultivate that pillar of strength within ourselves. It is a good way to cultivate our relationship with our own vulnerabilities and fears and all that feelings of insecurities. It takes time. Nobody's expecting you to be perfect the first time, you know. Go out, sit at the park, read a book, do something else other than doom scrolling on your phone 24/7, right? Be aware. The more alone you are, the more aware you can become. There's more space for these feelings to come up when you're alone and not overstimulated. I've been there. I understand. In fact, I still do some of those things that I talked about, right? But I'm trying, yeah. That's more than enough, right? Being aware is the first step to understanding why you do the things that you do, why you have addictions, the addictions that you do. In fact, I believe strongly that being aware is 95% of the job done. Being consciously aware, watch yourself do those things, watching yourself do anything at all, your thoughts, watching yourself think those thoughts, watching yourself feel those emotions is 95% of the work done of breaking that habit, of changing your of improving yourself, of whatever you want to change for the better, for the betterment of your own self. Being consciously aware and watching yourself do it is 95% of the job done. And the other 5%, you're probably gonna laugh and think that this is ridiculous, but the last 5% is automatic. It's automatic. And that constitutes change, the whole 100% of it. So conscious awareness, that's 95% of the job done. The rest, the remaining, is automatic. You will, at some point, somehow or some way, break that certain habit. Once you're consciously, you take the time and effort to be conscious. That's all. Just pay attention to what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're reacting to people. That is 95% of the job done. That's it. It may sound simple, but it's definitely not easy. I've tried it. It's not easy. I can speak from experience. It's not easy to break away from a habit. That's why that's why they're called habits, right? But you don't have to feel guilt for doing those habits, or there's no there, it's part and parcel of our personal individual evolution, the human evolution. And habits are our teachers in a way, some way, somehow. And we all have personalized teachers, personalized habits and addictions and bad thoughts that loop in our mind. We all have karma, right? So stop judging yourself so harshly, cut yourself some slack, and thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.